Hello, how's it going? Today I want to show you guys how to add sound to your C++ projects using SDL2 Mixer. Basically just going to walk through a little demo that gets it up and going. And I've just done a Google search for SDL2 Mixer here. So this is a way that you can add sound into parts of the logic of your program. Even if it's a console program, you can do it. But you would imagine that this is more intended for games or other sorts of applications, which it works great for. Now SDL2 Mixer can do a lot of pretty cool things, and we're just going to scratch the surface here in this first video. So I'm on Windows here, and I'm going to be using Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition. If you want to follow along, I recommend you do the same. It's pretty straightforward. So what you're going to need is the development libraries and the VC edition. So I've already went ahead and downloaded these. These are just zip files, and I unpacked them. It's just a folder inside. So I'm not going to walk through that, but basically you need to download this and unpack it, and you need to do the same thing with SDL2. Just SDL2. This one here. You're going to need the same development library for SDL2. And then Mixer is sort of an add-on to SDL. So you will need both of those, and you will need to unpack both of them. These are pre-built for 32 and 64. We're going to be using the 64. Alright, so assuming you have that sorted out, downloaded and unpacked those somewhere where you want to keep them, we can continue. So we're going to go ahead and do a new project here on Visual Studio 2019. And we're just going to do an empty project. So we're going to go ahead and hit next, and we'll name this SDL2 Basic Sound Demo. There it goes, and we got our default setup. My default might look a little different than yours, but mainly you want to have a Solution Explorer and a place to run your application here. I'm going to switch this to Release in 64 because that's what I'm going to be intending to work with here right off the bat. And over here in my Solution Explorer, I'm going to click Show All Files. And that way I can actually see my project. There's nothing here yet, so we're going to create a few things. I just right-clicked on the top level here, and I'm going to go to Add, New Folder, name it. I'm just going to name it SRC for source. And in here, I'm going to add a new item. And yes, a C++ file. We're going to name it main.cpp because it's our entry point, and we're just going to go ahead and populate that with some basics. And then we're going to add another new item, and this time it's going to be a class. And it's going to be, well, we can name it whatever we want. It's basically going to be a class for our sound. And this first one we're going to make is going to be intended for sound effects. So it'll be for short little snippet sounds. We'll call it SDL2 Sound Effects. Sure. We're not using any base class or anything. There we go. Let's go ahead and just fill out a few starter things. Public and private. And make sure there's actually, okay, these didn't go into the source folder, so I'm going to go ahead and drag them in. So watch out for that. Sometimes when you create new stuff, it doesn't end up where you think, unless, I think if I right-clicked on this folder and did it, it would have put it in there, but I might not have done that. Okay, so we've got a bit of a skeleton here, and now we just need to put in all our code and link SDL2. I know the code's more exciting than the whole linking part, but the linking part is required. So I could show you all the code, but the code is not going to work until it's linked. So I might as well plow through the linking part. So basically what you want to do here is where you unpacked those first two files I was talking about from this here, this development library on SDL2 and this SDL Mixer development library. That's what we're looking at. I've unpacked those in a very special folder I call dev. on my big SSD. Yeehaw. Also take note that I have a hard drive specifically for one game, Arc, because it takes up an entire hard drive. Anyway, okay, so this is where those are unpacked, SDL2 and SDL Mixer. So I'm going to look at SDL2. I'm going to go inside it. You'll see an include and a libraries folder. And you'll see the same thing on the mixer, an include and a libraries folder. Now, just to get started, let's just go in this order. We're going to go into the library folder on SDL2 and then into 64. And then we're going to find this DLL and we're going to copy it. So Control C or right click and copy, however you want to do it. And I'm going to move this over. And then you want to go back to your project and to the top level and just hit paste. And then we want to do the same thing for the other DLLs. So let me get back to that folder here. And we're going to go all the way back to the mixer. Go to the lib, 64-bit, and you'll see a whole bunch of stuff here. You want to grab everything but the library, pretty much. So copy all of these files, and then go to the top level again here on your project and paste them here. Where's paste? There it is. I'm purposely not using the hotkeys so you can see exactly what's going on. So as you can see, these have been added to the project now. Yeah, we're just going to need those. It's going to complain later if we don't have those. And we're going to go to the next part now, where we are going to set up the includes and the libraries. So we're going to go over here to our Solution Explorer and click this Properties button. You can also get to this in a couple other spots, I think notably under View, maybe. But I always click this wrench because it's easy to remember and find. So if you click this wrench, it brings up the properties for whatever you've clicked on last. I've clicked on SoundEffects.h. I want to click on this top level one here and then click the properties, because this will give me my current project properties. So in here, I'm going to set up some VC++ directories. So if you double click on this one, then you find the include path here. VCC directories, include directories, click the caret to the right, click edit. And then you want to click the new folder up here. Click the three little dots to allow you to direct somewhere. And right now we are doing, let me just confirm here, cancel. I'm doing the includes. So in this includes, I want to add the paths to those includes on both those folders I was looking at in my big SSD dev SDL2 include. So I just highlight the folder, select folder. Actually, I don't think that's good enough. Let me edit this, because let me just double check. No, that's fine. You just click include and then hit OK. Then you want to do this again, and you just want to point to your other one. Now it's worth noting that you can actually make these includes in libraries. You can put them into your project as well and then link them. In that way, if someone else downloads your project, it'll just work. Otherwise, they're going to have to set these up because their hard drive paths are going to be different than yours. So I'm skipping that step of making it part of the project and making it sort of an outside thing that the user needs to do. But if you're on the same development laptop all the time or computer all the time, it's okay to not necessarily put duplicate every development library with every project, because you'll just end up with a million duplicates for every project. But when you go to push it to the outside world for other people to use, that's when you want to sort these out and put them with your project. Okay, so side rant done about that. I guess it wasn't a rant, it's actually important information. So let's go to the libraries here, and it's essentially the same thing, except these libraries are slightly different, and I'll explain. So we go to libs, make sure you go to x64 because we want the 64-bit ones. Go ahead and apply that, and we're going to do this again, except for the mixer this time. Same thing, mixer, lib 64. So if you're ever pushing this to release or want someone else to use it, it would be a good idea to put these libraries with your project and then sort out these linkers so that they just point to your project, and whoever gets it and downloads it and opens it with Visual Studio, it'll just work and they'll just be able to hit play. Okay, so those are all done and good. We also need to set up the linkers. So the linkers for this project are basically all the linkers for SDL2 and SDL Mixer. So we need to tell it to use SDL2.lib, SDL2 main.lib, and then SDL2_mixer.lib. We'll apply those. So that's everything with the properties. Back up and double check if you need to. Okay, let's get to building these functions. So let's think about what we want to do exactly first. So let's go to our main, and let's assume that, yes, we want to include our soundeffects.h, because we're going to be using that. And it's an object, which is called SDL2 soundeffects. And we're going to instantiate it, and we'll just call it SE, for sound effects. And so if you think about this, what would you ideally want to do from a programmatic perspective interfacing a class? I'm thinking we just want to do something like, we want to have a function called add sound effect, and maybe it has a path. Maybe we want to SE play sound, and the sound could be just a number. So for the playing sound, well, I have some sound effects on my hard drive. You can use any WAV or MP3 file. I've custom made some, well, sort of custom. So I'm going to paste in a path here. This just goes to one of my drop boxes, and it has an RTD2 little talk thing. And maybe I'd also want to load a second sound, because in theory I'd be able to load up several different sound effects. So here's a second one. That is a grunt sound effect. I think I'm going to change that, because that particular grunt sound effect is not what you would expect. It's like 3 minutes of grunting. Don't judge me. It's okay, here's a bunch of other random ones. I want to use a small one. See, that grunt sound effect is like a giant. Let's just use Metal Gear Solid Alert. So I'm going to click on this, hit F2, press Control C to copy that, and I'm just going to put this in here. .mp3 is right. So if we go back to this, we could grab more of these, and we could copy this line, place this in here, you are dead sound effect, and we could just keep doing this is the idea, and then eventually we'll want to play them. And to do that, if we return 0 right after playing it, you won't hear it because the sound will be gone. So let's make a little loop that has a choice variable. So while, and we'll say choice is not equal to -1, we'll stay in the loop. And then we can do something like, well, let's start it out by just making sure it's 0 every new loop, and we'll ask the user for something. Which sound effect to play? Enter -1 to exit. I know this is a super long line at this point, so we can make it a little nicer by putting a new line here and continuing our cout with like a thing here that prompts. We could do anything, whatever you want to do. To prompt is fine. So yeah, and then we'll end that. And then we want to take in their number. So cn choice. And obviously I need to include these this IO stream for that. And then I guess after we get the choice, we want to do like sound effect dot play sound effect and whatever choice. And then in case they gave us some bad stuff, let's do a cn.clear. I don't know, that's not going to be perfect, but it'll solve some weird errors if like a user presses a lot of buttons. cn.clear doesn't clear all of them, but it'll help in some cases. This isn't a perfect thing because well, the end user can mess it up. Like if you enter valid choices all the time, it'll be fine. But if you just like press a million buttons in for this, who knows what it's going to do. It'll probably go a little crazy. Alright, well we got 3 sound effects. We just need to build our class to accept these, and this is where we get into all the SDL2 stuff. So let's look at the header. We need some public and private stuff. Let's see, privately we're going to want all our sounds. So we're going to want them in a vector because there's going to be a bunch of them. And this just auto did this. Stop. We're going to be using a mix chunk. And we'll just call this our sound effect bank. Now, it doesn't understand vector because we got to include it. And that's fine. Doesn't understand mix chunk because that's part of SDL2, which it doesn't seem to see through the auto. So let's just include it manually. Include SDL2. Well, is it SDL2 mixer? I guess I could just look. So let's go to the mixer, to the includes underscore, SDL underscore mixer. That's what we want. There. That should be happy. Yes. So there we have our mix chunk available. And we're going to do, of course, a constructor. Just a default one that's going to initialize SDL. And we'll do a destructor, and this will just deinitialize SDL for now. Okay, I need a 2 in here. There we go, now they're happy. And we want our functions that we preemptively tried to use before building them. Add sound effect. Is that what I called it? Sound effect. Yeah, add sound effect, and then play sound effect. Okay. And this is going to take a char star. Actually, it's going to be a const char star of a path. It's basically a string in a more raw format. Since it's const, it can't be changed. That's what these quotations default to. So that's why I'm doing that. You can use strings if you want. And then play sound effect, and we'll say which. This should also be const. Now, these aren't going to be perfect. There is room for improvement, so if you have any, feel free to note it below, and maybe I'll consider adding it in on the next part of this when I can, as I continue making these sorts of videos. We can press Alt-Enter to have it do its little auto thing of generating these functions, but I just want to create all 4 of them over here in my object file. So now I can build these out. So when this starts, we want to initialize the sound. Init sound. We're going to do that with SDL init and SDL init audio, because that's the only part of SDL we want to initialize here. And I believe SDL init is actually part of SDL. Yeah, there we go. So that's part of where we start to need the SDL header. Okay, and then we're basically going to do mix open audio and give it all these rates, frequency, format, channel, chunk size. And so we can change those if we want. I'm just going to go ahead and paste them up here. But since we're doing a class, these would probably end up being member variables in the long run. That way we could set them up however we wanted. But for now, I'm just going to initialize it, and then these variables are gone. So there it initializes. Now this returns something. If we look at the signature, it returns an int. And so we want to store that int to make sure that this initialized properly. We can do it like that. We could also just check it right within a statement itself, sort of like so. And we just want to be sure that it's not equal to 0. Because if it equals, or I'm sorry, I'm saying this backwards, we want to be sure it equals 0. So just putting it in the if statement like this will execute it. If it's not equal to 0, we go inside this if statement. And this is just going to be an error statement. So I'm going to put this standard log error which is just like so, and we will exit the application if said thing happens. That way we don't bug anything out by continuing further. So that'll initialize the sound, and also at the same time make sure it doesn't error out. And when we exit this class, we are going to do SDL quit for now, because we are all done with SDL. It's the only thing in our project with it. And now the add sound effect. So basically what we want to do here is take that path and load up a new mix chunk. So we're going to declare a mix chunk pointer. We'll just call it temp chunk. And we'll do mix load wave, which is part of SDL mixer. And we'll do it on the path. So it'll attempt to load the wave at that path. Also works for MP3s despite it being named load wave. So then from here we can just check and make sure that this chunk actually initialized. Make sure it's not equal to null pointer. So we'll do it this way. Yeah, if it's not equal to null pointer, then we have a success. So we have a success, and we want to go ahead and add it to our sound bank. So we push that temp chunk onto our sound bank, and we're all good. Now we could add a little message here. This will just tell us how big our sound bank is as we continue to load more and more, because it's going off the sound bank size, and it'll tell you which one. It'll say like the first one will say 0 sound is ready, and then you could say something like path, and then we'll show the path so they know which one it is. Okay, so every time you load a sound, it'll just tell you in the command line which one it is. That way we can work with the little playback thing a little better. Alright, and for the playing sound, we basically want to, well, hold on, before we get to that, let's go ahead and do the error case here. And it's just going to be the same thing as this above. We don't want to exit though. It just won't get added to our bank, because it will go to this instead of adding it to our bank. And then I think that's all we need to do. Okay, now when we want to play the sound, we will just want to call this one, and which is going to be which sound to play basically out of these numbers from the size. So first thing we want to do is just check and make sure it's within range. So if the number we put in is greater than the range allowed, we'll just let them know. Sound out of range. Then we could give them a little more info, but that's all we're going to do for now. We will put a new line there. And if it's not out of range, it just skips over and we continue. So that way we know it's a valid play attempt. -1 is which channel. That just says the first available channel. Sound effect bank at which is which sound effect, and 0 to play it just a single time. We could put another last note that we just played a sound here. Played sound, and I guess we'll just put the number here. That's good enough for now. And now this should all work. So let's just make sure everything's saved here. Saved. And then we'll go over to our main. It looks like we're good here. It's going to load these 3 sounds. Well, it's going to instantiate our class, load these 3 sounds, and we'll get messages about all 3 of them. And then we'll be able to, it'll start this loop and sit at this prompt. And we can enter in a number to play any of the sounds, and it should just work. Let's go ahead and play here. Get some output. There we go. It looks like it didn't find SDL2.dll, which is weird because it's right here. Now I think maybe these aren't linked as expected. Let's go ahead and exclude them from the project. Yeah, that copy and paste thing I said earlier. Don't do that, sorry. Instead, go to your project path and go to Open Folder and File Explorer. So you want to just find where you made your project and just paste them in here. Because what that paste was doing when I was pasting in the Solution Explorer is I think it was just making some kind of oh, what are they called? Someone will know in the comments probably, but I think it's a dynamic link, like the object wasn't actually there. It was just referencing it, and that's not enough for these runtimes. They need to actually be there. So let's go back to these, back to the lib 64, and we'll grab all these same ones, hit copy, Control C, and go to our, yeah, you go into the project that it is. So you go one level deeper, and then you paste those. And we're going to do the same thing with the library for SDL. The DLL here. Copy, paste, and now they're over here. So if we hit refresh over here, we should see them all pop up. There they are. Very good. And now this should work. Okay, very good. So 0 sound is ready. It came from that path. 1 sound is ready. Came from that path. 2 sound is ready. Which sound effect to play, or -1 to exit. So let's go ahead and just press right down the line. 0, 1. Metal Gear Solid alert. I love it. Okay, you are dead sound effect. This is a scream. Fair warning.
You are dead.
So we could, in theory, add as many as we want, and this bank will just keep adding more, and we can play them just with this little loop. But of course, you can use them as you want in logic with your own program or game. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed or learned something and can get this code all running. Wish you luck in all your endeavors. This has been Matt from Code Tech and Tutorials. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.